They told you it was a test. They told you the pain was punishment, that the silence meant God forgot you, that the setback meant you failed, but they were wrong. This isn't a test, this is trust. When life begins to break you open, when everything you built starts to fall, when you're standing in the fire, trembling, tired, questioning. Don't believe for a second that you're being punished. You're being trusted. Trusted with pressure, because pressure makes diamonds. Trusted with delay, because time reveals true desire. Trusted with loss, because some blessings are too big to carry with what you use to hold dear. See, the Creator does not toss greatness like spare change. He delivers it like fire, refining, shaping, molding. Not because He doubts your strength, but because He sees it, buried under years of doubt, distraction, and survival. You don't test someone you expect to fail. You trust someone you expect to carry the weight of legacy. That's you. You're being trusted with the storm because you're built for the sunrise. After it, you're being trusted with silence because your voice has power when it returns. You're being trusted with solitude because your spirit needs to grow beyond the noise. So when the world gets quiet, so quiet it echoes, don't panic. You're in the process. And God never puts a soul through the process without purpose. Abraham didn't get tested for failure. He got trusted with a future. Joseph didn't get sold for punishment. He got positioned for purpose. Nelson Mandela didn't get locked up to be forgotten. He was being refined to lead free men. You think the fire means you're finished? No, the fire means you're close. Now breathe. Because what you're carrying right now, that heaviness, that ache, it's not a curse. It's potential in disguise. It's the seed of resilience stretching underground, unseen. And every time you keep walking when no one claps, every time you show up when everything says quit, every time you pray without answers, without proof, you are confirming the faith He placed in you. You weren't picked to suffer, you were chosen to endure, and not because God enjoys watching you break, but because He knows you won't. That's the paradox of destiny. It never looks like a blessing. At first, it looks like chaos. It looks like betrayal. It looks like being last in line. But what if the delay is alignment? What if the breakdown is reconfiguration? What if the closed door is divine protection you never saw coming? See, you asked for greatness, but greatness requires growth, and growth doesn't come from applause. It comes from the crushing. You asked for leadership. Now you're learning how to stand alone. You asked for strength. Now you're lifting burdens others would collapse under. You asked for clarity. Now you're being stripped of everything that once blinded you. Don't mistake this season for rejection. This is recruitment. He's not testing you to expose weakness. He's trusting you to discover your strength. And strength, it's forged in silence. It's built in moments no one sees. It's earned in the dark long before the spotlight ever arrives. Look at your life. The detours, the betrayals, the nights you wanted to quit. All of it. Every step, every scar, every sleepless night. It was God saying, I'm preparing you for something only you can carry. So how do you survive the fire without burning out? You don't beg for the flames to end. You become fireproof. And that doesn't mean you don't feel pain. It means you refuse to let pain become your identity. It means you recognize that what's breaking you now is building you into someone unstoppable. Stop asking why it's hard. Start asking, what am I being trusted with? Because if the burden is great, so is the calling. If the resistance is strong, so is the mission. If the wait is long, so is the reward. You are not being punished. You are being positioned, prepared, pruned, and trusted. You think God is testing your limits. But what if He's just showing you that you don't have any? Because inside you is more strength, more grit, more clarity than you've ever tapped into. But you'll never find it in comfort. You'll find it right here, in the heat, in the weight, in the wilderness. This isn't where your story ends. This is where the real one begins. And if you're still standing right now, after everything that tried to crush you, then hear this clearly. You were chosen not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. Willing to endure, willing to rise, willing to keep moving. And forward, even when the path disappears beneath your feet. That's faith. Not singing in the sunshine, but marching through the midnight storm. Not waiting until it makes sense, but walking when all you have is a whisper. Every time you obey without full understanding, you are echoing the footsteps of giants. Moses didn't part the sea because he had a detailed plan. He moved forward because he trusted the source. Edison didn't invent the light bulb because the process was painless. He pressed on because he believed in the vision. You don't need all the answers to act. You just need the courage to keep stepping. So let me say this with fire in my chest. You are not waiting on God. He's waiting on you. To step, to trust, to rise. The delay you're experiencing isn't because he's unsure. It's because you're still in the becoming, and becoming takes time. The acorn doesn't rush the oak, the caterpillar doesn't skip the cocoon, and the person you're meant to be, the one who can carry the blessing you begged for, can't emerge until you shed the version of yourself that was never meant to stay. What feels like punishment is a permission slip to grow. You are outgrowing who you were, and that process, it's messy, it's confusing, it's painful, but it's also divine. You're not being ignored, you're being ignited, you're not being set back, you're being set apart. And the moment you stop resisting the discomfort and start recognizing it as transformation, everything shifts. Because success, real success, isn't born in the light. It's forged in the shadows, when no one claps, when no one believes, when the only voice telling you to keep going is the quiet, one inside that refuses to die. You don't get a crown without the cross. You don't get destiny without discipline. You don't get greatness without grief. This is not self-help. This is soul work. And soul work doesn't polish you. It breaks you open. It takes everything that's been hiding in the corners of your mind, the doubt, the fear, the lies you've told yourself, and it burns them off, one by one, until all that's left is the real you, the version of you that was always meant to lead, to speak, to heal, to carry the weight of a vision bigger than your past. Now look around. Everything that has left your life, everything that walked away, fell apart or failed, it didn't leave to punish you, it left to make space. God doesn't just subtract, He prepares. When He clears the table, it's not rejection, it's renovation. He's not taking something from you. He's making room for something through you, because what's coming is bigger than what's gone. What's ahead is greater than what you've lost. And you are ready. Even if you don't feel it yet, even if your knees are shaking, even if all you have is one last breath of faith left in your lungs, that's enough. Because this is not where you break. This is where you bloom. You weren't called to be crushed. You were called to conquer, and the weight that was meant to bury you, it's going to raise you if you refuse to stay down. Keep going, even when it's dark, even when it's silent, even when you don't know if it's working, because obedience is louder than answers, and faith doesn't wait for proof. It creates it. This is your season to rise, not because it's easy, but because it's time. Time to stop explaining your fire to people still afraid of the spark. Time to stop dimming your light for those comfortable in the shadows. Time to stop shrinking into the version of yourself that others approve of. And finally step into the version God has anointed. He's not testing you, He's trusting you with influence, with impact. With the calling your bones haven't stopped burning for. The wilderness is almost over. The breakthrough is already on its way, and you're still standing, and that's the greatest proof of all. You're still standing, and not by accident, because strength isn't built when everything is easy. It's revealed when nothing is. And make no mistake, what you've walked through would have broken lesser souls, would have shattered weaker minds, would have silenced smaller spirits, but not you. You didn't crumble. You recalibrated. You didn't retreat. You rebuilt. And while others waited for the pain to pass, you learned to find power inside it. That's not luck, that's legacy. And the people who left you behind, the ones who didn't understand your process, the ones who said, "You've changed," when you started setting boundaries and speaking truth, let them go, because elevation requires separation. Not everyone can walk with you where you're going, not because they're evil, but because they're not assigned to your next chapter. Growth always exposes what no longer fits. And when God is preparing you for more, He doesn't just give you new things, He removes old weights, he breaks the chains disguised as comfort, he deletes distractions dressed up as friendships. That's why it hurts. Not because he's cruel, but because he's clearing the runway for your launch. So if you feel like you're losing everything, remember this: he's not leaving you empty. He's preparing you to hold something bigger and to hold it well. Your hands must be free. Let's talk about the mind. Because before anything shifts in your reality, it must shift in your belief. Your current life is a direct reflection of what you've settled for mentally. Every excuse you've justified, every fear you've fed, every ceiling you accepted without question, that wasn't life, that was programming. You were trained to play small, conditioned to stay safe, taught to survive instead of rise. But understand this: God did not put breath in your lungs for mediocrity. He didn't design you with divine fingerprints for you to spend your life doubting your worth. You were born with dominion, not defeat. You were wired for purpose, not permission. You were anointed for greatness, not approval. And when your mind finally catches up with your spirit, when you stop arguing for your limitations, when you stop rehearsing your failures like they're prophecy, you'll see what he always saw: a leader, a fighter, a builder, a warrior, not flawless, but faithful. And in this life, faithfulness is greater than talent. Consistency outlasts charisma, and belief moves mountains that hustle never could. So if you want to rise, don't just change your habits, change your thinking. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And when your mindset shifts from victim to vessel, from fear to faith, from scarcity to abundance, everything else aligns, because prosperity begins internally, not in your bank account, not in your relationships, not in your resume, but in your thoughts. So speak to yourself differently. You are not behind. You are being positioned. You are not weak. You are being refined. You are not cursed. You are being called. And that voice in your head, the one that says you're not enough, you'll never get there, you're wasting your time, that's not God. That's fear impersonating wisdom. That's trauma dressed up as logic. Silence it. Because the same mind that once convinced you to shrink can be trained to believe in something greater. You just have to choose which voice gets your loyalty. Will you listen to the one built by doubt, failure, and survival? Or will you tune in to the deeper whisper? The one that's always said, you were made for more. You're not in a waiting room. You're in a workshop. And God, the master builder, is chiseling away everything that doesn't belong in the next level of your life. That includes your old thoughts, your old fears, your old blueprint for what's realistic. Because faith isn't realism. It's radical obedience in the face of impossibility. It's David staring down Goliath with nothing but a sling and some stones. It's Ruth walking into an unfamiliar land with no plan but full trust. It's Harriet Tubman leading others to freedom with no map but divine conviction. It's not always logical, but it's always powerful. You want the impossible? Then stop playing by predictable rules. You want breakthrough? Then break away from everything average. You want elevation? Then stretch your thinking so far that fear doesn't even recognize you anymore. Because here's the truth: your life will only rise to the level of your faith. So raise your faith. Raise it like a banner in battle. Raise it like a standard in a world addicted to doubt. Raise it not because it's easy, but because your future demands it. Faith is not naive optimism. It's not pretending the pain doesn't exist. Faith is standing in the middle of a storm and saying, even this can't stop what's coming. It's waking up to disappointment and deciding you're still worthy of a miracle. It's refusing to let reality write your future, because you serve a God who operates beyond what's visible. Faith is the fuel that builds empires, writes legacies, restores families, and shifts nations, and make no mistake. It is also what keeps you going when nothing else will. You can be tired, but stay faithful. You can be unsure, but stay obedient. You can be broken, but stay available. Because faith doesn't require perfection. It requires motion. When you move, even with trembling steps, heaven responds. Doors shift, provision flows, alignment begins. That stirring in your soul, that ache that won't let you settle, that's God reminding you. You're still part of the plan, and now comes the hard truth. You will not always feel motivated. You will not always feel strong. You will not always feel supported. But feelings were never the foundation. Decisions are, discipline is, vision is. You don't need to feel ready. You need to be willing. Willing to rise before you feel rested. Willing to speak before the fear leaves. Willing to act before the applause comes. Greatness is not for the perfect, it's for the consistent. It's for the disciplined. It's for the one who builds when no one's watching and refuses to quit when everything says stop. That's where transformation begins. Not in the breakthrough, but in the grind. Not when it's easy, but when it's lonely. Not when everything's clicking, but when nothing is, and you still show up. Discipline is saying yes to purpose when comfort begs you to stay the same. Discipline is training your habits to follow your vision, not your emotions. Discipline is walking with lions, even when your legs shake like a lamb. And hear me clearly, the world does not hand crowns to the comfortable. It honors those who sacrificed comfort for calling. So ask yourself this: are you willing to be uncomfortable for what you said you wanted? Are you willing to lose sleep for the dream? To be misunderstood for the mission? To be stretched, pruned, and reshaped for the purpose? Because if you are, then you're ready. You're ready to stop chasing motivation and start building momentum. You're ready to replace excuses with execution. You're ready to stop rehearsing the past and start designing your future, not with noise, but with quiet, relentless, focused action, the kind that happens behind the scenes, the kind that no one sees, but heaven always rewards. And here's the part most forget: gratitude is not the reward for success. It is the secret to unlocking it. You want more? Be grateful for what's already in your hands. Gratitude multiplies. Gratitude grounds. Gratitude creates a signal to the universe that says, I'm ready to receive more because I already value what I have. And it's not about being fake happy when you're struggling. It's about choosing perspective over pity. It's about seeing the blessing inside the burden. It's about realizing that even in the chaos, you are learning something divine. When you're grateful, you operate from overflow. You become unstoppable, not because you have everything, but because nothing can take your spirit. So today, choose gratitude like it's a strategy, because it is. Speak it aloud, write it down, feel it deeply. Gratitude is the soil where all miracles grow. And still, even with the right mindset, belief, and gratitude, you will face opposition. Expect. Welcome it. It is a sign you're doing something that matters. If no one is questioning you, if nothing is resisting you, if you feel zero friction, you're probably playing too small. Resistance is confirmation. The enemy doesn't chase what isn't dangerous. So when pressure increases, don't flinch. Smile. You're being refined. You don't become resilient by avoiding pain. You become resilient by surviving it and growing through it. Resilience is your refusal to quit, your decision to keep rebuilding, your ability to get knocked down 7 times and rise the 8th. It's knowing that scars aren't signs of weakness. They're trophies of survival. And the more resilient you become, the less control life has over you. Because now you don't respond to circumstances, you respond to your calling. You rise not because of the conditions, but in spite of them. And now we reach the turning point. Not because the story is over, but because you're ready to rewrite it. This isn't about who you were, this is about who you choose to become now. The old version of you. The one that waited, wavered, and doubted, feared. It served a purpose, yes, but it cannot follow you where you're going. It's time to shed the skin of survival. Time to bury the beliefs that kept you small. Time to break the agreements you made with mediocrity. Because the you that God is building now, that version is dangerous to darkness. That version is an earthquake to limitation. That version doesn't beg for permission. That version creates reality instead of reacting to it. And all of it. The trials, the pruning, the silence was never to destroy you. It was to deliver you into alignment, into power, into authority. So stop wondering why he trusted you with the weight. Stop questioning why it had to be so hard. Stop looking backward for answers when your future is roaring in front of you. He trusted you with this mountain because he knew you'd move it. He trusted you with the fire because he knew it wouldn't consume you. It would crown you. He trusted you with the vision because he knew your faith would carry it when the facts didn't. Let this truth shake your bones. You were not created to simply exist. You were created to lead, to expand, to shift, to build. To be the first in your bloodline to break the curse. To be the one who rewrites the narrative. To be the spark that ignites 1,000 flames of purpose. And yes, that calling is heavy. But so is greatness, so is legacy, so is freedom. And you're ready for it now. Because you've been forged in pain, trained in silence, conditioned in chaos, and what came to bury you accidentally built you. You are not just a survivor. You are a strategic weapon in the hands of destiny. And if God has brought you this far, what makes you think he'll leave you now? So this is it, the threshold, the edge of your former life, the moment where you no longer apologize for dreaming big, where you no longer play small to make others feel comfortable. This is where you cross over, from fear to faith, from frustration to fire, from being tested to being trusted. The next step, it's not waiting on signs, it's not begging for clarity, it's action, unapologetic, committed, fearless action, because the version of you the world has been waiting for, that version doesn't hesitate, that version doesn't shrink, that version understands. I was chosen for this. I was trusted with this, and I refuse to waste it. No more delay. No more excuses. No more pretending you're not called. You are. You always were. He's not testing you. He's trusting you. Now walk like it. Build like it. Speak like it. Live like it. And don't stop until the world is forced to adjust to the weight of who you've become. This is your time. The fire didn't break you. It built you. And what's coming next will require everything you've gained, but you're ready because he made sure of it, and the rest of the world. It's about to find out.